Sandy Says Read, and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to do a Booktube tag. This is the to read or not to read Booktube tag. Where did I see this? Oh, I've seen it in a couple of spots. I wonder if I wrote them down. Let me go to the screen below. Those of you who are new to the channel, you might not know that I used to have a printer here in the house. The printer became possessed by something evil and would not print unless it was 3 a.m. and we were having a lightning storm. Then it would print whatever I had spooled from the week before. I finally got rid of that printer. It has gone to the recycling bin. So the printer is gone. I can no longer print things in my house. So everything is on the screen now. So these prompts, the information about the tag, it's on the computer screen. So I'll be looking at the screen a lot during this tag. It is the to read or not reread tag. I didn't say that right, did I? Moving on. I saw it with Book Chat with Pat. Of course, I tend to go over to Pat's channel to see what tags are new and happening here at Booktube. And let's see, I saw the interview that Steve and Hannah did together talking about the tag. I thought that was very nice. But it was created by Bob at Robert G. Reader of Books. So I will put a link to Bob for sure in the comments field below. Nope, in the information box below. I'll put a link there for sure. And if I remember other things, I'll be surprised. But you guys, this tag, it makes me think of going back and revisiting old friends. Okay, rereading a book, it's a comforting thing. It is a good thing to do. It's a calming experience in my estimation. It's something like pleasing and calming and gentle. It's a good practice to do, in my opinion. I think of, the books on the shelf, all around this room, the books on the shelf, they are old friends that I have, traveled to different lands with, right? Okay. And the characters in those stories are just sitting on the shelf waiting for a conversation. They're waiting to chat again. So when you can go back and reread a story, it's like going back and visiting with those characters again. It's like having a new conversation with those characters or revisiting an old conversation. It's just a good, comforting, calming thing to do. And there are people in my past, in my life, there are people who don't get that. There are people in some of my circles who view reading as, brace yourself, a waste of time. There are people I know who don't see reading as something that's worth doing or talking about. This Booktube channel is like a foreign concept, okay? So this tag is lovely. It is a wonderful thing to do. Okay. Talking about rereading books it's kind of cool. Okay. And maybe I'm just a complete nerd, but I think it's kind of a cool thing to do, to sit down and talk about rereading and what books we like to reread. I think that's a nice idea. And I think it's a nice idea, not just because I have a Booktube channel, but because there are people in my life out there who don't see reading as important and who would definitely not see rereading something as important. I mean, if they're telling me that reading is a waste of time, rereading something is going to be double the waste of time to them. And that, I need to yeet that negativity from my life, but there you go. Okay, so we're going to do this tag. I've got the prompts here on the screen. Before we begin the prompts, some housekeeping, such as, you guys, please subscribe to the channel. Please welcome your friends to subscribe to the channel too. The YouTube gods tell me that I'm supposed to remind you to subscribe. Otherwise, people won't remember to subscribe. And I have looked at my analytics, and only 20% of the people who watch the videos are subscribed. So, click the bell, click, and all that good stuff. Thank you. Because here at Sandy Says Read, we talk about books and how awesome it is to have books in our lives. We're going to dive in. The prompts begin with number 1 asking, do you reread fiction. Why or why not? Yes, I do. Sometimes. Okay, we got to put a caveat in there. I don't reread fiction as often as I would like. You guys, when I was a kid, there's a couple reasons for what I'm about to say. When I was a kid, I reread fiction a lot. Growing up, my family did not have oodles of cash, okay? And we didn't really go to the library real often. There's some reasons for that. We're not going to get into that. We're not going to unpack my childhood here on the Booktube channel. The point is, in the summers, I would reread the Little House on the Prairie series. All the books in the series, I would reread them every summer. It's what I did. Helen Keller, I would reread every summer. I had certain books that I loved to reread. That Take Care of Dexter, that book, I recently refound it and brought it to you guys here on this channel. Recently being within the last 2 years, I would reread that one when I was little. There was Charlotte's Web. There were certain books that I would reread all the time because I loved them. I enjoyed them, and I had them in my possession. So I was able to reread them. They were on my shelf. So I could pull them down off the shelf and reread them. I owned them. I didn't own a lot of books when I was little. So yeah. Shall we move on? So do I reread fiction? Yes. I don't now as often as I would like. I mean, you guys, I've told you before here on the channel, I've got the day job that takes 40 plus hours a week. Then I write, so that takes some time. Then I have to market the writing, which takes some time. And then I read for this channel. And when I'm reading for this channel, I'm trying to bring you guys new to you authors, some from independent publishing houses and some self-pub authors. I'm trying to bring you guys new to you authors, which typically means it's a new book out there. So I'm reading new fiction. Does that make sense? Should we move on to number 2? Let's move on to number 2. Do you reread nonfiction? Why or why not? Not a lot, you guys. And here on the channel, I don't read much nonfiction to begin with. There's a reason. The reason is if I'm reading a book, I want it to take me out of this world. Take me away. Calgon, take me away. I want to be removed from reality when I'm reading a book. Take me out of this world. Take me somewhere else. I want to be removed from reality when I'm writing a book. Epic fantasy is my jam because I want to create a world that is not this one. I want to create a political system that is not this one. I create all the things, and then I take myself there. I take my readers there. I take my dragons there. We go elsewhere. Because that's the fun of reading. Criminy, right? Okay, so nonfiction is usually happening in this world, right? And that's not what I'm reading for. If I'm reading nonfiction, I'm probably trying to learn something. I want to learn how to do something. And if I reread it, it's because I'm ancient and I've forgotten what I read. And so I need to reread the lesson. Yeah. So that's why I would reread nonfiction, to get the lesson back into my brain. Number 3. Shall we move on to number 3? If you reread fiction, what kind of fiction are you most likely to choose? Bestsellers, classical literature, genre fiction? And then what is your reason for the choices you've made? Yes, rereading fiction. What kind am I most likely to choose? I do like to reread classical and reread genre fiction. Fantasy? Yes, I do like to reread fantasies. I don't know that I would enjoy rereading a mystery because I'm already going to know who done it if I'm rereading the mystery, right? There we go. Adventure stories. Yeah, maybe. But here's the thing. In the interview that Hannah and Steve did, I loved the approach that Hannah talked about to rereading Jane Eyre. Now, if I understood her answer correctly, if I understood what she was saying, it sounded like she takes those 15-minute snippets of time to dive into Jane Eyre, like sections of Jane Eyre. If I understood her right. And I think I was hearing her say that because that's what I do. When I have moments and I need that bit of comfort from Jane Eyre, I can turn to that novel and just pick a piece out of it to read, a passage to read, a chapter to read, a section, and just read for a little while and feel that familiarity of it, that comfort of it. It's very peaceful. You guys, how can I explain this? You know how when you rewatch a movie, you know the ending, you know what's coming next, you know what the characters are going to say. There are some movies where we can quote the lines with the characters. There is a psychological reason for rewatching movies to that extent. There's a reason for it. There have been studies. We do that as humans because there is a comfort in the familiarity. We writers are told, there are certain elements of world building that we need to include because there is comfort in the familiarity for the reader. When we are doing these rereads, I believe that same thing is happening. I believe that trigger is there. I believe there is comfort in the familiarity with Jane Eyre. And I'm going to show you one of the many copies of Jane Eyre that I have in my possession. There is that comfort in the familiarity of the different things that young Jane and the adult Jane and then the womanly Jane go through. There's this comfort in that familiarity. Okay, I'm going to read a little passage for you in just a second here because it's fantastic. But I am aware there are Janeites out there in the world who reread the whole novel every year. During the year, they read the whole thing. And I am jealous of them. I'm envious. I want to do that too. A couple of years ago, I bought a new fancy dancy version of Jane Eyre. It is in the other room. I should have brought it in here because it's so pretty. I've shown it to you guys on camera before, but it's in the other room. And it is, it's just lovely. It's a pretty thing. So it's like on display at the top of the bookshelf, and it's open to the scene where Jane and Rochester meet, in the misty glen, right? It's in a place of honor, I guess you would say, but there's a comfort in like reading bits and pieces of it. And when I purchased that fancy new version of Jane Eyre, it arrived and I was inspired to start reading it just from the beginning and work my way through. And then life happened and interruptions happened and I kept getting interrupted. So now that pretty book is just up there in that place of honor, looking nice. And I have not reread the whole thing all the way through every year the way the Janeites do. And I would like to do that sometime. I'm going to have to make it a mission to start doing that. Anyway, all that to say, I want to read a passage from Jane Eyre as a piece of comfort for us all. Are we ready? This is at the wedding. And this is on page 295 of this version. The explanation of the intent of matrimony was gone through, and then the clergyman came a step further forward, and bending slightly towards Mr. Rochester, went on. I require and charge you both, as ye will answer at the dreadful day of judgment, when the secrets of all hearts shall be disclosed, that if either of you know any impediment why ye may not lawfully be joined together in matrimony, ye do now confess it. For be ye well assured that so many as are coupled together otherwise than God's word doth allow are not joined together by God, neither is their matrimony lawful. He paused, as the custom is. When is the pause after that sentence ever broken by reply? Not perhaps once in 100 years. And the clergyman, who had not lifted his eyes from his book, and had held his breath but for a moment, was proceeding. His hand was already stretched towards Mr. Rochester, as his lips unclosed to ask, Wilt thou have this woman for thy wedded wife? When a distinct and near voice said, The marriage cannot go on. I declare the existence of an impediment. You guys, even after all this time, after all the many times I have read that, I have goosebumps. I got chills reading it again. That is the comfort of familiarity with Jane Eyre. And that's what I'm talking about. After all the times I have read that, after all the times I've seen the movies, plural, with that scene, I still get the chills. I still get goosebumps from it. Yeah. There you go. Okay, so did I answer number 3 completely? If you reread fiction, what kind of fiction are you most likely to choose? I'm most likely to choose fantasy or Jane Eyre, any of the Bronte sisters, any of them. But yes, I loved Hannah's approach to picking up Jane Eyre for spats of time. Okay. Number 4, if you reread nonfiction, what kind of nonfiction are you most likely to choose? Histories, biographies, blah, 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 blah. What is your reason for the choices you've made? Okay, and I think I answered that in number 2. If I'm rereading nonfiction, it's probably a how-to nonfiction. It's probably something that's telling me how to do something, and I've forgotten the lesson. Number 5, if you've read a book which has been translated from another language, would you reread the same book in a newer or different translation? Yeah, I would. I would. Now, here's a caveat. I read The Three-Body Problem in English. I would not have any interest in rereading that in any other translation. No, that's harsh. I did a review here on the channel of The Three-Body Problem, and I did point out some really good things that I did enjoy about the book. But overall, I have zero interest in rereading that thing. Number 6, how many times would you reread the same book? Now that is going to depend upon the book and why, right? How many times would I reread the same book? Like Jane Eyre, I would reread Jane Eyre. Well, The Pieces and the Parts, I've reread many, 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 many times. If I could be disciplined and sit down and reread it the way the Janeites do, I would like to reread it every year. That would be lovely. I would like to do that. And then I could reread it every year. My own books, like I have had to reread my own during like the editing and getting edits back from editors and revising and getting comments back from beta readers. Like I have to reread my own again and again and again and again ad nauseum. And then like My Fairy Valentine, vampire satire, I had to reread this and I wanted to reread this last week. I'm filming this on weekend of Passover. I reread this last week because it was printed in 2021. When did this get released? 2021. It was released. And I'm doing an interview with Vamp Chat with Dan and Ava for their podcast on the 16th of April, Wednesday, from when this is being filmed, Wednesday. I wanted to refamiliarize myself with the plot and the characters and the exact things that happened in this book in the series, because this is the book we're going to be talking about on the podcast. So yeah, I had to refamiliarize myself. So it depends on why and which book, how many times I will reread it. Like I think I mentioned, when I was a kid, I would reread like the Little House series every summer. That was out of kind of necessity. I mean, I wanted to read a book, and what did I have on my shelf? Not a whole lot to choose from. So I reread Little House. I enjoyed it. I mean, wasn't that was all. You get it. Okay. Number 7, what's the most recent book you've reread? Well, My Fairy Valentine, most recent one I reread. I reread Dracul. I brought this one over to show you guys. I reread Dacre Stoker's Dracul. I reread this one in advance of interviewing Dacre here on the channel. But I had originally read it to interview him at Imaginarium. That was 2023? Before. I think it was 2023. He was a guest at Imaginarium, and I interviewed him, and I needed to know what I was talking about, okay? And then I wanted to refresh it in my mind, reread it for this channel. I don't know what other books I've recently reread. There is a book called Uprooted by Naomi Novak. Naomi Novak. That book is a fractured fairy tale or a twisted fairy tale. And I have the Fractured Fairy Tale Challenge happening here at the channel. So I had pulled that book off the shelf and I was talking to you guys about it, reading the back cover kind of thing. And I thought, wait a minute, I don't remember this. Like, it was just not coming back to my brain. And I thought, I don't know that I have read it before. I read her other one, Spinning Silver. Sorry, the birds are getting a little worked up. I read Spinning Silver and talked about it, I think, on the channel. I don't remember that either, but I remembered that story so much better than Uprooted. So I think I'm going to be rereading Uprooted for you guys here this year. So that will be the most recent book I've reread once I reread it. It may be a new read. I don't remember having read it. You guys, is that enough rambling and crazy for this tag? Because the final prompt number 8, is to tag some friends. And at this point, I would imagine that everyone who wants to do this tag is already doing it. I'm usually late to the party on all of these tags. So if you have not already done it, please consider yourself tagged. If you are watching, if you are enjoying this chaos and mayhem, please consider yourself tagged. I want to say, please give it a thumbs up, because thumbs up for rereading books. Yes, thumbs up for the nerd in us loving that and loving going back to revisit these characters, revisit these stories, to have the conversations renewed. Because I love that. Thank you so much for tuning in.